Hey, welcome back. It is great to see you here again. Today we're doing a review of the Canon R5 C. This is something I've been planning to do for months and months and months, and I have quite a lot to say about it now. So get yourself a tea or a coffee, make yourself comfortable. Let's do this. This review is going to be more about the usability of this camera as opposed to its specifications. There's plenty of videos out there which talk about specs, and I'll put those in the description as well, the ones that I found useful. A big thank you to the guys at Wilkinson's in Kendal for hooking me up with my Canon R5 Cs pretty much as soon as they came out. Much appreciated, guys. And remember, everybody, support your local camera stores. For me, it is the perfect tool for the work that I do. But I need to talk a little bit more about the kind of work that we do here at Naked Media in order for you to understand whether or not this camera suits you or if you need to look elsewhere. We don't tend to work in a particular sector or industry or in a particular kind of video production. We tend to work with a particular kind of client. What that means is we need to be able to deliver whatever they ask for. If they want high quality video, or if they need high quality stills, interior photography, portrait photography, or time lapses, aerials, we need to be able to deliver whatever they're after. On top of this, we work in one of the rainiest places in one of the rainiest countries. We live in the Lake District in the UK. This means we are often working in adverse conditions, let's say. Whatever the weather or whatever the clients need, we need to be able to deliver that. So that is why this is the perfect tool for us. A lot of people will look at the R5C and say that is an R5 with unlimited recording time. They've taken an R5 and put a fan on the back and got rid of in-body image stabilization. Other people will say that it is a baby C70, and they're both wrong. What we lose with the R5C compared to the R5 is obviously the in-body image stabilization. That's gone, so you're not going to get the same level of sharpness with handheld shots at lower shutter speeds. I have noticed this with events shoots. When I'm shooting something that does require that level of sharpness and detail, such as with product photography or interior photography, then it's going to be fixed down on a tripod. That issue is no longer a factor. It's not as ergonomically satisfying as the Canon R5. I have to say, it does feel more awkward in the hand than the R5, which felt very svelte. Having the movie recording removed, why? I don't understand that. It's basically the same system. Why can't you leave the movie recording in the photos mode? Really stupid. And that is pretty much where the stills differences end. If the majority of your work is photography, and you do video every now and then, the R5 is going to suit your needs. You don't need this camera. You really don't. It's cheaper to get the R5, it's better to hold, takes up less space. Get that instead. If you're at 50-50, or more like us, we're at 70-30 when it comes to video versus photography. Having a Cinema EOS operating system is something that a lot of videographers will really appreciate. You get a lot of tools that the R5 doesn't have, such as waveform, false color. Yeah, these are in Canon's newer stills cameras, but there is something more to the cinema side than just the tools that you use while filming. It's also about fine-tuning the audio, having 4 tracks instead of just having 2 tracks. Being able to fine-tune the noise reduction. Being able to map certain functions to all the keys which can be changed is super helpful when you're trying to do a run-and-gun shoot, which is a lot of what we do. But more importantly for filmmakers and videographers, it's the file types that this camera outputs compared to the stills cameras, or the R5 and the R7, the R3. Having MXF files is really helpful. They have a lot more metadata built in. When you load them into Final Cut, it automatically grades them with the appropriate LUT, if you have that setting turned on. This saves time with every edit. Unlike the R5, it also has timecode. I don't tend to use that. Now, if you compare this to the R5, you're going to prefer the R5 because you're probably a photographer that likes in-body image stabilization, doesn't like the big booty, and likes having LP6 batteries that last for a day. If you're not doing long-form video, you really don't need this. You'll benefit with longer battery life for video and faster switches between video and photos. It's just a better system for photographers. But what about the Canon C70? Is this just a baby Canon C70? Absolutely not. If you're a C70 owner, you probably love that thing, and I did love mine. The quality of the footage that comes out of that is just magnificent. But I've used them both on a shoot, and I preferred the footage that came out of the R5C. The C70 is not a sharp camera. Yes, it is a beautiful image, and the Dgo sensor is very nice, but you always have to sharpen the image afterwards, and it just adds another layer of work. Yeah, if you don't like sharp images, then absolutely. Just gives you more options in post to sharpen if you want to. I found it an extra level that we had to work into our editing workflow. The C70 was bulky. It had mini XLRs, which weren't ideal, and we actually had one break, which leads me on to the main problem with the Canon C70. It feels like a toy. It is brittle plastic. Everything feels very cheap. It's not a cheap camera, and the quality of the image is definitely not a cheap looking image, but I didn't trust it taking it out on shoots, and we often end up being up the side of a mountain, out in adverse weather, filming in the rain, and having something that feels solid and rugged in the hands, and you know is weather sealed. It just gives you peace of mind when you're doing those kind of shoots. The C70 did not give me that peace of mind. We got a little bit of drizzle on it once and it died. It bricked completely. If you do more hybrid work, or you're going to be filming in adverse conditions, this is going to be better than a C70, way better, and I would highly recommend it in those circumstances. Another thing compared to the C70 is the quality of that screen. The screen that comes in the R5 and the R5C is incredible quality. It's fantastic. The LCD, brilliant. And it feels sturdy, it feels strong. If I did this with the C70, that would have dropped off by now. I would be holding it in this hand and the camera in this hand, and there would be tears rolling down my face. So if you are doing work indoors mostly, in a studio, talking heads, or narrative work where you don't need to worry about being out in the elements, the Canon C70 is a fantastic, fantastic camera. Just be careful with that screen, because it is flimsy and it will break. So enough of why this isn't an R5 boosted or a C70 shrunk. Let's talk more about what this camera is. Now, most people tuning in are going to have seen other videos on this or done some research on this camera themselves and found out that there are some serious issues with the Canon R5C. And I'm going to take you through those, the problem and the solution that we've used, because I've been using this camera for about 8 months now, and it's worked absolutely fine. Well, the first time I took it out for a test drive with a client, didn't quite go that way. And the reason for that was the battery life on this, if you don't approach it correctly, is shocking. Using these LP6 batteries is great because for photography, they're nice and convenient. They don't take much space in your bag, you can have them in your pockets. And in stills mode, it lasts absolutely ages. Flip it into video mode, and it is a completely different story. Just having the camera on, you will see that battery drain. And it is quite frightening if you have a limited supply of LPE6 batteries. And when I first took this out for a client shoot, I had 8 batteries. It just managed to last the half-day shoot that was. And that was quite scary because, well, I've never run out of batteries on a shoot before. This camera almost changed that. So if you're the kind of person that likes to have just internal batteries and use the Canon LPE6, this camera is not for you. However, there is a solution which actually I really, really like. And that is this beast right here. Now, this is a giant power bank. It's heavy, it's rugged. I think it's like solid metal. You could use it to fend off muggers in a dark alley. And you plug in one end here, put that in your pocket or in the bag that's over your shoulder, and then you plug the other side in here. What I really like about the power bank solution, it fits in your pocket, so it's actually quite handy to carry around. As long as you have that, you have power, you have juice for an entire day. It still keeps the camera nice and light. The weight ends up being in your pocket, around your waist, rather than in your hands in front of you like this, which eventually does wear on your back. As long as you approach this with the mindset of this is a cinema camera that needs proper power, as opposed to this is a DSLR, you won't have a problem with battery life. It's only if you treat it like I did for that first shoot, just like an R5, thinking, how bad could the battery life be? It could be that bad. The second issue that a lot of people will talk about is the mini HDMI out. They shouldn't have done it. They should have put a full-size HDMI on there, and it would have been a lot more versatile, a lot more useful. We don't tend to use external recorders. Honestly, the file types and the resolution and the raw internal recording, you don't really need one with this camera. That's probably Canon's reasoning. Still stupid. Tiny gripe, but after months and months of use, this thing, I'm glad they added time code because it makes this camera a lot more useful for multicam, but it always pops out, it always gets caught on things. It's really annoying. That could have been done better. The fourth issue is the time that it takes switching between video and photo. You might find that you miss shots if you are doing a proper hybrid shoot. So if you absolutely need to get from video to photo within seconds, this might not be the right solution for you. The R5, just being able to push that button and start recording video might be a better solution. I've not found it to be that big of an issue. It's about, depending on the camera's mood, between 5 and 8 seconds to switch between modes. As long as you're aware of that, you can deal with that. To be honest, I prefer having the completely separate operating systems. And if that kind of fast-paced switching between the two is really vital for a shoot, I'll have one of the cameras set to stills mode, the other one set to video mode. I've done a few shoots like this, and it works perfectly fine. So there's a solution, and that length of time is not the end of the world. Finally, the main problem that I found with this camera, and it might even be the reason why it has been rejected for Netflix approved list, is the noise, the video noise. The video noise is not very pleasant. Now, if you shoot in very dark environments, you will see a horrible noise pattern. Hopefully Canon can address this. I would really like them to look at this in a firmware update because it looks really, really nasty. Yes, we can use neat video to improve the quality and make it look better. You always sacrifice some resolution with that, and you sacrifice time in the processing and the edit workflow. Not ideal. As long as I keep it in the base ISOs, the noise level is manageable. But you need to use an ND filter to adapt between those two base ISOs. Enough misery about this camera, let's talk about the good stuff. There isn't a better camera out there than this when it comes to being adaptable to do pretty much any job that's thrown at it. It is quite a modular system. If you're doing a very long shoot and the camera's going to be on a tripod all day, then absolutely you can stick this onto a base plate battery and you have quite a big camera, but it's on a tripod, so it's not that big a deal. And for anybody that thinks this isn't a proper cinema camera because it doesn't have XLR inputs, XLR module, it is now like an ENG camera. You can put your microphone in there, plug in some wireless mics, very, very handy. And again, if you need it, you can always add it on. If you don't need it, you can take it off and you have a nice light system. And so you're saying, yes, but it doesn't have ND filters built in, and that's absolutely vital for a cinema camera. We whip off this lens, try not to drop it, and then we put this one on, and this one is attached to... It's okay, it wasn't the lens. If you take off the RF lens and put on this EF to RF adapter, you now have a built-in ND filter. And this ND filter is also variable. That means that you can change the level of ND during a shoot or during a talking head. So having that module put on means that this is now, well, it's a C70 now, isn't it? But better. Full-size XLR, dials that are actually usable, unlike the C70s, which are appalling to use, honestly. It's so finicky and fidgety. It's almost impossible to use those while filming an interview. And we have a variable ND, which you can change while rolling, while filming a piece to camera. However, those two additions do bring this up to the full cost of a C70. So if you want something that has all of those built in already, go for the C70. If you want to be able to take these off and then just use it as a small, light cinema camera, you absolutely can. So this gives you more options, which for me makes it more versatile, more adaptable, and in the end, more useful. What also makes this camera absolutely fantastic is the video image quality. I talk a lot about the C70 in this, and yes, the Dgo is fantastic on that camera. The overall image that comes out of this camera compared to the C70, I absolutely prefer it. It is sharper, straight out of camera. It has a beautiful Canon Cinema EOS look. It is just a glorious, kind of creamy, satisfying looking footage. There's plenty of videos here on YouTube, and do check out some of our content as well to see samples of the Canon R5C's footage. It really is glorious. And from video footage over to the stills, because this is a true hybrid camera. If you know anything about the R5, you will know what a fantastic system that is to use for stills photography, and we get most of that right here. We've used it for portraits, for interiors, for events, for product photography. This thing is so capable. Anything you can throw at it stills wise, it can deliver. Next up, what I love about this camera is the weather seal. Not having to worry that if you get caught in a flash rain shower, that your camera will absolutely fail. This thing is rugged, it can take some bashing, and it can take some rain. It's got a switch between photo and video. Love that. There's something about having a hybrid shoot where you're out and the client asks you for stills as well as video. Turning off the kind of video mindset or turning off the photography mindset during a shoot, what I find really, really helpful is being able to switch between video and photo with a click and go, we are now shooting video, or we are now shooting photo. It's that click on the camera and that click in my mind as well saying, we're shooting this style, change your approach. And this is actually amplified by the different operating suite inside each mode, in that when I'm looking through on the photo mode, I see Canon Stills operating system. When I look through and it's on video mode, I see the EOS Cinema operating system. Yeah, some of you out there might have more fortitude when it comes to being able to separate the two. I just find this tangible aspect quite helpful. The preamps inside this are fantastic. Having a tally light is so useful. If I'm using my two cameras for a multicam setup, then I know that the one that I've placed over there is working fine. Being able to punch in during filming. If you use manual focus, this is very, very helpful, and it's something that EOS stills cameras still don't have. There's not much point shooting in 4K if you haven't got critical focus. There's no point shooting at 8K if you haven't got critical focus. What about having 8K? Is that a benefit? It's a handy feature to have. We don't use it very often. We don't shoot in 8K. It's future-proofed. So again, I don't see us changing this camera system for a good long while. The lack of in-body image stabilization and the digital IS. You don't get that wobble with wide lenses. You don't have to worry if you're attaching it to the side of a vehicle. And also, if you put it on a gimbal, it behaves. Digital image stabilization is actually really, really good. It's a lot more natural than IBIS if you're using it handheld and doing pans. Having face-only autofocus is the difference between your production looking professional and your production looking amateurish. If you're using face detect autofocus with the R5 and the person leaves the frame, it will instantly focus to the background. With this and the C70, if you go out of frame, how do I get out of frame? Ah! Yeah, so you see, it doesn't change the focus. It doesn't focus to the background. That's a kind of little thing that is really, really useful for professional video work. Now this is a biggie, and I almost forgot about it because it seems like such an obvious thing with this camera. This has an EVF built in, always there, extremely high quality, and still weather sealed. But if you've used a camera like the C70, you know that if you're filming out in bright light, you are doing this to the screen because the screen isn't very good quality, having an EVF built in and a fantastic quality LCD makes this so much more usable than the C70. It just does. This is the perfect gimbal camera. It doesn't have in-body image stabilization, it doesn't mess up the gimbal shots, and if you stick on one of these smaller RF lenses, such as that is the 16mm, look at the size of that, and it is so light. If you put on one of these little tripod handle things, you can vlog with a full-on cinema camera. That's pretty cool, right? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm banging on about the versatility and the adaptability of this camera, but that is its main selling point, and that really is the main reason to get this, if that's what you need. If you are somebody who works in bigger production houses or in the cinema industry, again, this probably isn't your camera. But if you're a small bespoke production company like ours, then I can't believe what we have available to us. We can create such incredible content. We can create cinema quality content with a camera this size that also shoots stills. That's mind-blowing. So if you are considering getting one of these, would I recommend it? Probably not, because this fits perfectly what we do. And that was the reason why I wanted to tell you more about the kind of work that we do, because if that sounds like you, this is the perfect camera. If that doesn't sound like you, then there's going to be many other options out there that will suit you better. And I'd love nothing more than for you to say down in the comments what kind of work you do, and if you're interested in getting this camera, if it is the kind of thing that would work for you. And I will answer each and every one of you to say my recommendations on why this would be a good system to get, or the downsides of why this probably isn't the best system for you. Yes, for the quality of video that we're getting out of this camera, it is a very well priced piece of kit, but it is still not cheap. The majority of people, this is not the camera. But for people like me, the kind of work that we do, this is the perfect system. Whew. So I have talked a lot about the Canon R5 C and what I like about it, issues with it, and compared it to other cameras as well. Hopefully this has shed some light over the reason why I decided this is the perfect camera for me. I'm going to look to do some more detailed videos on this camera system for anybody that either has it or is looking to get it. So do subscribe to the channel, and I shall see you in the next video. Whew. Time for another coffee. I shall see you later.